Okay, I'd like to talk to you about Ezekiel. It's in the Bible. I'm just using the Living Bible, paraphrased by Tyndale. You use any one you want. King James has worked the same. Now we're going to talk about Ezekiel. You've probably been taught that Ezekiel is something about a wheel within a wheel, and this guy's sitting in the center of this wheel within the wheel, but that's not what it says in the Bible. It clearly states that this craft, which most people are trying to say is a UFO, has wings. And to go down here, he's seeing this huge cloud glowing with fire with a massive inside that flashed continually, and in the fire there was something that shone like polished brass. Then from the center of the cloud, 4 strange forms appeared that looked like men, except each had 4 faces and 2 pair of wings, which almost everybody does not bring up. So these craft have wings. They're not a wheel within a wheel. These are craft with wings. Their legs were like those of men, but their feet were cloven like calves' feet and shone like burnished brass. And beneath each of their wings I could see human hands. The 4 living beings were joined wing to wing, and they flew straight forward without turning. Each had the face of a man in front, with a lion's face on the right side of the head and the face of the ox on the left side. Well, it goes on to say, 1 pair stretched out to attach to the wings of the living being on each side, and the other pair covered his body. Wherever their spirit went, they went, going straight forward without turning. Well, we have craft with wings. So my opinion is, I think this would fit the bill a little better. Okay, we have a pair of wings on each side of the body, and we also have, guess what, stretched to the heavens, 2 pair of wings. Okay, now if you go on to read more and more, they let down their wings when they land. Now this is a flap, and this lets down for landing. It gives extra lift. People that aren't familiar with aviation might not understand this. Now here is the engine, and how the engine works on a jet is a wheel within a wheel. How it works is you have a stator wheel and you have a reactor wheel. It's a gas-producing jet. Makes a great rushing noise when it comes out here. And the colors change from bright ultraviolet light, depending on the power settings, and they can flip these over, and the pilots usually call them turkey feathers. What you do is you flip this over and put fuel out the back, and it becomes red like a lantern's. And the craft, this craft here, will land either on a outer runway, which in the Bible they're calling a outer court, and the taxiway is the inner court. And the pilots normally, when starting this craft, cry out because mechanics working on the airplane. So they're crying, you know, the wheel's coming hot, the engine's coming hot. It's a old saying from the propeller-driven days when the propellers were used on aircraft. But the pilot is crying out to the engine so somebody doesn't get hurt. Now, in here they also say about the calf's foot. Well, when it's landing, the landing gear comes down, and of course it's black, being tires. And they drop this down, they drop the wing flaps down, and they set down and land. As far as the pilot's concerned, he's wearing a helmet and normally an oxygen mask with other shields on it. If he has to, the pilot has to eject out, he will come out of here, and there's a rocket behind the seat which is lit, and it'll show a flame down below his waist, or in the Bible they call it loins. As he ejects, it goes through a cycle. Of course, the canopy comes off naturally, and this parachute comes out, and that will look like a cloud over his head when he's descending to Earth. So what we're looking at is a pilot sitting in here with a scepter or stick between his knees, and he's sitting on this throne, which is actually a chair. Now, to go on, if you read into the Bible more and read Ezekiel completely, it explains how these craft fly, how they don't turn like a bird. When they turn, the pilot simply rotates this with what's called an aileron out here, and then he starts to build lift into the wing here with this back here, which is a stabilator. It's an elevator and a stabilizer as one unit. As he turns, generates lift on the wings, and it turns. So the craft itself doesn't look like it's turning. It's just developing lift. Lift basically pulls the aircraft around the turn. Where the Bible goes on to say where this is, there's a city, and one side is these craft, and the other side to the south is where the civilians live, and they go through guarded gates to get into this place where these craft are stored in buildings. And it goes on to explain what the pilots wear is cotton and linen, which of course we know U.S. Air Force pilots do wear. And these fly unit of 4. United States is one of the few countries that does fly with 4 jets in formation. Other countries, German is group, which is 3, and England is 5, and various. But the United States flies 4, and Russia normally flies 5, but will fly a chevron of 4. So we know now that these craft with these wings up, pair on the sides, does meet the criteria for the definition in Ezekiel. Now, where this place is there's a waters. And the interesting thing is there's no fruit trees, which man can eat the fruit thereof, according to Ezekiel. And the waters flow both ways, but they do have multitudes of fish. There's a large mountain to the north, and the city sits on this water that flows both ways. Well, doing some research, there's basically 2 places on Earth where this could exist. One is Anchorage, Alaska, and the other is Bay of Fundy in Canada. However, Bay of Fundy in Canada does bear fruit trees. So when reading Ezekiel, either it's a very big coincidence that all this stuff lines up, or we have a prophecy of the future. So you have to read it and interpret for yourself. So if you read this, you'll have to come to your own conclusions and see whether you believe these prophecies are according to this, or it's just a coincidence. So you'll have to be the one that determines that, not me. Thank you. Okay, so now the only other thing we've got is if you go up into Revelation, go to number 4, and I'll just read a short passage here. Directly in front of his throne were 7 lighted lamps representing the 7-fold Spirit of God. Spread out before it was a shiny crystal sea. 4 living beings, dotted front and back with eyes, stood at the throne's 4 sides. The first of these living beings was in the form of a lion. The second looked like an ox. The third had the face of a man. And the fourth, the form of an eagle with wings spread out as though in flight. Each of these living beings had 6 wings, and the center section of their wings were covered with eyes. So I think that's a repeat, and that gives you the timeline, which would be the chronological order of the things to happen with these craft.